everybody, and welcome to our penultimate live Q&A as part of Ask AIT's virtual events leading up to the CEO deadline on July 1st. And today we are here to talk about hospitality, tourism and leisure. And very shortly we're going to be joined by Dr. Tony Johnston, the Head of Department of Hospitality, Tourism and Leisure at AIT, to guide us through the recovery path for tourism within the hospitality, tourism and leisure sector after COVID-19 and the effects of COVID within this space. Also talk about the career prospects, but also to look at the course offerings that are available at AIT, from level 6s right through to level 8 at undergrad. And Tony will talk to us as well about giving us an idea about the opportunities that are available at postgrad as well. So at this point, I'm going to bring Tony in on this morning's live Q&A and have a brief chat with him in relation to these spaces. So bear with me a second. Just when we're waiting for Tony to come through, just to highlight that over the last number of weeks, we've recorded some really good podcasts, vodcasts, and received some really good blogs from students as well within this space. So it's worth checking that out on our CEO Hub. So at this point, I'd like to welcome Tony to this afternoon's live Q&A. Tony, you're very welcome.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks for the invite and thanks for setting us up today.
No problem at all. No problem at all, Tony. Tony, I suppose to start, we want to take a look firstly at the hospitality, tourism and leisure sector post-COVID, if possible. There was a very interesting piece posted on the Irish Times a couple of weeks ago, a really interesting article, and talked about the demand for Irish people doing staycations this summer, and that is part of the recovery already to COVID. So can you give us a bit of an indication of how the tourism sector is going to recover from COVID?
Sure. Okay, so first of all, tourism is an industry that's really used to facing crises. Over the last 20 or 30 years, there's been a number of shocks that have affected the tourism industry. There's been healthcare crises, like the COVID one that we have at the moment. But in the past, there's been terrorist shocks, there's been wars, there's been environmental crises like the tsunami in Southeast Asia and various things like the volcano in Iceland 10 years ago. The one thing about tourism is it's really resilient and it always recovers after shocks. There isn't an industry that you can find in the world that doesn't face a shock at some point. You know, we can just look at construction 10 years ago in Ireland, for example, and how decimated it was during the recession time, but it's rebounded. I would fully expect tourism to rebound in the next few years, to rebound a lot quicker than people think, actually. If we went back even just 1 year, last year in 2019, 330 million people around the world worked in tourism, and it was responsible for around 11% of the world's GDP, or the movement of money or wealth, whatever way you want to look at it, around 10 to 12% usually. If you go all the way back to 1950, just 5 years after World War II, there was only 50 million international travellers. And if you fast forward then to 2020, this year was projected to be 1.4 billion travellers. So you can see very quickly how tourism has grown to become a very normal part of living and an everyday part of leisure activities. The industry will rebound and will rebound very quickly. I would say that at the moment, there is probably no better time to get into the tourism industry because a student who starts today would be graduating in 3 or 4 years' time, and that's right when the recovery will peak. So I'll give an example of first mover advantage there. If you go back to 2008, in the middle of the recession, there was a very small company formed called Airbnb. At the time, nobody really paid a huge amount of attention to Airbnb. And last year, it had revenues well in excess of $1 billion. And that's only 12 years post the worst financial crash in history. So tourism creates innovation and creativity. And it would be a really good time to join now because the graduate from 3 or 4 years' time will be entering the industry at a time when it's really starting to boom again.
Okay. And I recently I saw that you posted a really good piece with Careers Portal as well in relation to the 10 reasons why tourism will recover. So for anybody interested in that space, that link is up on our Facebook and our Twitter feed at the moment. Moving on, Tony, to talk a little bit more about AIT and about your department within the college. I mentioned at the start, you have a range of level 6s right through to level 8 programs at undergrad. Can you give us a little bit of a flavour about what those programs entail and the range in terms of the areas that they cover?
So we have 3 level 6 programs, 1 level 7 program, and 2 level 8 programs. There's some common themes through all of them, and I'll tell you about the common themes first. First of all of those programs prepare students to work in the hospitality, tourism, and leisure industries. They're very much focused on the skills that a tourism professional will need. So they need to know the industry well, they need to know customer care, they need business management skills, and they need very much to have some practical experience. So all of our students will take a compulsory work placement. And for the last number of years, for the most part, those work placements are well paid. And they range from students taking them locally in their hometowns in the Midlands to students taking them in very exotic destinations, going quite far abroad to enjoy their work placements. So we've had students go to China and Malaysia, to India. We've had them go to sub-Saharan Africa. We've had them all over Europe and France and Spain, and even working on cruise ships and in resorts. The East Coast of America is always very popular for work placements as well. The 3 level 6 programs we have are higher certificates in bar supervision, higher certificate in sport and recreation, and a higher certificate in culinary arts. Each of those courses has a strong amount of practical content throughout the 2 years. So on sport, the students will study sport coaching, sport studies, they'll do some swimming, they'll do outdoor activities and outdoor recreation, and they'll do lots of exercise and fitness as well. The students on the culinary arts course will study international cuisine, food and beverage studies. They'll do lots of pastry and bread making and do lots of food preparation and food production. While the students on bar supervision will learn about mixology, cocktail making, wine and beer studies, bar operations and bar service. All of those courses are fundamentally underpinned by core business management skills, and the students will study marketing, HR and leadership as well throughout the time with us. All 3 of those courses have a compulsory work placement as well, as I just mentioned. The Level 7 course is a hotel and leisure management program. It's a 3-year bachelor's ordinary level degree, and the students who take that course can expect a work placement in year 2, and they can expect lots of content around hotel management, from managing front office and managing accommodation services, to food production, to working in customer care and dealing with guests and requirements. The final 2 programs are level 8 programs, and these programs are very similar to the ones I've just discussed, but they have a little bit of a twist. They're 4-year honours programs, but the students have to go on a compulsory international work placement on those courses. So that's a Bachelor of Business in Sport Management with an international placement, and a Bachelor of Arts in Hospitality Management with an international placement. For both those programs, we assist students to find an exciting work placement overseas, and they go away for a 6-month period between January and September every year, or in the 3rd year of their course. So this year we've students expecting to head away in January 2021. We're a very international department, and we would typically send around 25 students abroad for work placement every year.
Okay, excellent. So really good overview of the courses that fall under your department there. You mentioned a common theme from your response there was in relation to work placements. Can you just, I suppose, give us, an understanding of the value of work placement when it comes to a 3rd level qualification, 3rd level degree? When a student graduates, what additional benefits does that student have if they have undertaken a work placement as part of their program?
That's a great question, Dan. So the employers usually look for 3 things. They want to see a qualification, they want to see additional certification, and they want to see a work placement. So our students will get a very high quality qualification. AIT is a very well recognized college, as you and I know. For additional qualifications, our students will also receive lots of practical training that will give them additional certs. So our sport management students, for example, will qualify to work with vulnerable adults and children. They'll be certified for first aid, and they'll also have taken pool lifeguarding qualifications and lots of other coaching badges if they're interested in doing so. The hotel management students will have worked with food. They'll have primary food and management of food hygiene certification, and the bar students will have done similar as well. So there's lots and lots of certs like that through all of our programs, and that makes it very easy for the student who has the degree to take the skills that they're learning in the college into the workplace. And they do that through the work placement, which usually takes place between first and second year or second and third year. As I said, the placements are generally taking place in the Midlands for those who wish to stay locally, but quite often we have students going to Dublin and Galway as well, or even overseas. When they work in the field during their placement, they're coming out with at least 1 year, sometimes 2 years of experience behind them. So it's not like the kind of placements that a student would do in secondary school, which is more about shadowing or observing or kind of work experience type placements where, they might be put in front of a photocopier for a week or something like that. The work placements are meaningful and they're challenging, and the students are frequently put in kind of junior leadership roles in the placement so that they can acquire some hands-on knowledge and some skills that the employer will benefit from. It would be a very common theme that our students would do a work placement, continue working in the placement provider on a part-time basis on the weekends, and then move into a graduate role with that company when they complete. So a typical journey might be that, say, a student on hotel management might start off in a food and beverage service position, and if they have a good work ethic and good skill level, it's quite likely that they would be promoted into a supervisory post. They could expect then maybe on graduation to look for a food and beverage management role, and then as they work their way up through the ranks over the coming years to even proceed on to something like general management of a hotel. Similar for the sports students, they might start off in a quite operational role. They might be a lifeguard, for example, in the swimming pool, or they might be working with children at a summer camp. But as they begin to show their skills and they begin to progress up through the ranks and get some experience, the placement provider will usually start to give them some positions of responsibility. And we've excellent reports back from the providers every year. I mean, really exciting placements from 5-star hotels to world-renowned leisure centres to really unusual places that the students find themselves sometimes as well. We've had them coach soccer in America on the sport and rec course, for example, or we've had them, we had a girl last year there who went off to Russia to work in a Sheraton hotel, and someone go to Portugal to work in a Sheraton hotel as well. We've had the students working on cruise ships, perfecting their language skills abroad sometimes. And we've even had them do work placements where I've been a bit kind of worried as head of department, will that student come back because they're performing so well there and the employer loves them so much? I'm kind of thinking, no, let them come back, to finish off their third year.
One thing that seems to stand out from all of your responses to our questions this morning so far is everything screams global and international, and that's from knowing you over the last number of years. You like to impose that global aspect into all areas of your department, and I know that you are very keen each year to run international field trips, bring students abroad. I'm still waiting for an invite to be brought on one of those, by the way, but can you talk to us a little bit about the field trips that you have brought the students on over the years and the benefits of those field trips as well?
Sure. It's a great question again, and yeah, we will bring you in future for sure. So we have around 400 students in our department, and my ethos is for those students to work effectively in the tourism industry, they need to understand international travel. They need to understand different food cultures and different sport cultures. They need to understand different patterns of mobilities and different leisure modes and so on, and different cultures and different backgrounds. So every year we try and bring around 25 to 30 students to a destination that they possibly wouldn't other visit in their lifetimes. Some are maybe a bit challenging and a bit different. So I'm not talking about kind of going to to the UK or something like that. We bring them to far-flung destinations. So in the last few years, we've had students in Dubai twice. We've had them in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. We've had them in India. We've brought students to Shanghai, and we've brought students to Beijing. And on each of those trips, we try to encourage students to learn something about the culture that's hosting them. It might be to learn a little bit about Asian cuisine, for example, in China or Malaysia, or it might be to learn about luxury tourism in Dubai. In Dubai 2 years ago, for example, we had the students touring around the Burj Al Arab, the world's only 7-star hotel. And we went there really to show students the kind of world of opportunity that exists at the ultra luxury end of tourism. So we met some people whose salaries were quite jaw dropping in that hotel, for example. We met one finance manager for the hotel who was on a tax-free salary of €14,000 per month. Quite nice, wouldn't it, Dan?
Absolutely, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So we take the students to these places to show them a side of tourism that they might not see in the Midlands in Ireland, and also just to kind of give them a flavour of what's out there in terms of global job opportunities and the kind of exciting things that they could engage with if they if they start to assimilate different cultures and to learn about different places.
Yeah, and the one thing about your programs are it offers an opportunity regionally, nationally, and globally, which is very unique, and it's something that a student can use it as a global passport to travel the world and work internationally as well. Just as you were talking there, I saw that Maria Dunn joined our live this morning to watch it. Let's talk about Maria and her successes over the last year. We did a really good podcast with Maria recently, and she talked about her making that transition into college, making that step from secondary school, and then learning more about what AIT's culture is all about and adapting to that culture. Can you talk to us a little bit about students like Maria, an award-winning student over the past year?
Yeah, so in addition to the curriculum, we try to give students a really good experience, and that's both through international activities, but also through engagement with activities at home. So we take our students out very often to see the kind of standards that are on display in the industry in Ireland. So when Maria joined us a couple of years ago, we would have probably taken Maria's group to a fine dining experience. I believe with Maria's group, we took them to Ashford Castle, a 5-star hotel across in County Mayo, where we had a tour of the operations and the facilities and the kitchens and so on. And that kind of tour, I would hope, would inspire students to go and think about working at the highest level. Now, Maria, as an example, then had a phenomenal experience over the coming years where she went on to win a Norris Student Chef competition, which would be probably the most prestigious competition for young chefs in the country. And, we're really honoured to have that award in AIT. And Maria's been an excellent student in that regard. We also took students, Maria and one of the other girls from her class, Caitlin, to a competition in India where they competed against around 30 or 40 different international teams in a culinary and hospitality management competition, and they performed really well at that. And then field trips, I think, if I could be right in saying that Maria has gone on at least 2 of those to Dubai and to Kuala Lumpur. So there's a huge range of international experiences there, but also a lot of Irish experiences, both in terms of visiting the 5-star hotels like Ashford Castle and Adair Manor and Ballyfin Domain down in Laois, but also in terms of getting exposure and networking at the highest levels in the culinary sector in Ireland by attending major conferences like Food on the Edge or visiting the competitions like the North Student Chef and entering those and getting really involved in the circuit. We try really, really hard to get that sort of experience for the students throughout the year. For example, just before we broke up there back in spring, we hosted a lady in the department called Mike and Beck Bailey. And Mike is the co-owner of Amshire. It's a 2-star Michelin restaurant across in Selbridge there in County Kildare. That restaurant, not many people might know it who are outside the culinary sector, but it's the fastest restaurant in the world to win 2 Michelin stars. So, I mean, you're talking about a really high-profile culinary arts professional. And she came in and spent nearly the entire day with the students, doing demos, meeting them, getting to know them a bit, and then ended by inviting some of them to come for work placement if they'd like. So that's the kind of experience we try to bring to the department.
Excellent, excellent. To wrap up, Tony, I suppose I want to get your opinion on why should a student, number one, choose a course within this space, and number 2, why should they choose AIT? So we'll go with number 1 first.
Okay, so first of all, tourism is an excellent career. It's a career that gives you a passport to travel, and it also gives you a set of transferable skills that you can bring into really any discipline. Tourism professionals are highly sought after outside of the tourism sector as well, because they have very, very strong personality and character. They have very good communication skills, and they really understand the application of business knowledge in the field. So they have a really great understanding of marketing and human resource management and finance and all of those good things that are needed to succeed in the business world. The second question you asked there is why AIT? I don't think there's a department in the country that gives a better student experience than the Department of Hospitality and AIT. Through our competitions, our work placements, our extracurricular activities, and our international field trips, we give the students this package of experiences over the 2, 3, or 4 years that they're with us, that they just really love, and they're excited always when they come in. They love being there. Many of them leave and go to work and come back to study with us in years later because they miss us so much. So I think the experience is really the main reason that they should consider coming to us. Sure, there's a mix of people watching.
Okay, let's wait for Tony to buffer back in here for a second. We're almost there, but if we can just get Tony back in for 2 minutes, hopefully.
Next year, just drop us an email and we'll get you in for a test class.
Okay. Tony, thanks a million for coming on this afternoon. We really appreciate it. And for anybody watching that is interested in a course that falls under Tony's department, make sure to get in touch before the deadline on Wednesday. We're here to help. As I mentioned at the start, you can register a call with our student recruitment team. We can refer you then on to the likes of Tony and his staff that can go through the courses in more detail and maybe reassure you about your decisions. So any questions that you have, send us a DM, get in touch, and we are here to help. So Tony, thanks a million for joining us. We really appreciate it, and we hope to see you very soon.
Thanks a million, Dan. Thanks, folks, for joining. Take care.